Welcome to the show. On this episode, I'll be discussing the film scores and television scores with composer Mick Giacchino. Let's cue the music. Welcome to the show, Mick. I'm glad you joined me.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me, Ralph.
Okay, so here's the deal. You're a big film score fan. I know this through conversations. I'm a big film score fan. I've been listening to it my whole life. I never really pursued music. I never learned an instrument. Again, you know this. I play the nose flute, which is essentially fancy whistling.
And you play it beautifully.
But you have scored TV shows, shorts, movies, and stuff. What is that even like? You're in the thick of it. First of all, right now there's a show on AMC called That Dirty Black Bag.
Yeah.
How many episodes is that?
Yeah, so that is my most recent. It just aired in middle of March, and it's about 8 episodes. So it started for AMC Plus. The first 8 episodes all aired, and then I think they just started airing on AMC the network as well. So I think the first 2 have been shown. It's
you've done shorts. You've done some films. But I can't imagine scoring a TV show like this is even remotely easy to do.
Yeah, this was definitely the hardest thing I've ever worked on. Because first off, for the scale of it, but also for the timeline and the budget constraints as well. I came onto the show late. Essentially, it's a spaghetti western that was actually filmed in Morocco, Spain, and Italy. There's 2 production companies. One of them half of the production is based in Italy, and the other half is based in New York. It's Palomar from Italy and Braun from the States. And so they were the ones producing it. And it was I came onto the project late. So generally, I think I would have started in August or September. But it didn't have me on until probably mid-December, I would say.
Wow.
And then, you have a week off or a week and a half off for the holidays and all that. And then the first episode had to be done somewhere in the middle of January. So I kind of had 4 weeks or so to do the first episode. I think 2 or 3 to do the second episode. And then it was essentially it was one week to 1.5 weeks for each subsequent. And that was a very fast turnaround. And we
didn't have episode. There's a lot of music.
Yeah, it was about 25 to 35 minutes per episode. So I think we ended. I don't know the total number, the exact total number, but it was somewhere around 4 hours at the end. That was written in January, February, March. It was written in about 3 months or so, 3.5 months maybe. And so it kind of feels like I just blacked out, and at this point I'm on the other end of it. It feels like I blacked out and just kind of all appeared. I don't quite remember all of the writing process, but it got done. And we had a smaller budget for that, so we couldn't really do anything orchestral. And I like to stay away from using orchestral samples, so I don't like using synths that are trying to play off as strings or as brass and all that. I like synths when they're meant to be synths, or if they're taking or if they're taking a real sound and modulating it to bring it into some other characteristic where it's again not trying to be something that is real. It can't exist in the real world. So we ended up having a small ensemble of there was a guitarist who played all sorts of different instruments, and he played a long neck, essentially what is a long neck banjo, he would bow it, and it would give this really cool kind
No.
of a sound, and it would kind of just sustain, and it was nasty. We would distort it. And he's great with doing a lot of ambient kind of textures and helping fill in uh, uh, just the space and put it together as a whole. So we had him, we had a cellist who we would generally give about 3 lines to, and she would just record from home, do a couple of overdubs. We would do some harmonies, sometimes a couple different layers, and we would do a couple things with it. Sometimes we would distort a little bit, but it was mostly, we would use kind of some weird techniques here and there. So we had her, and then we had a upright bass and electric bass who also doubled on electric bass for a couple things as well. So and then percussionist who did all sorts of different um, instruments. He went to Home Depot to go get a bunch of random metal washers and put them on a just a rod that he would shake. It's called a Griff stick is what the name is, because my brother Griff actually, when he was little, he found a bunch of metal parts and he made these shakers that they ended up using on Planet of the Apes, and so they're called Griff sticks. So I asked him to make a couple of those, and he found a couple other just random metal bits that he put together to create these cool. Again, they're all kind of different types of shakers, but we did a couple things as well where there's some cues where we used rubbing a wine glass and just kind of creating this kind of atonal dissonant tones. He did a couple passes of that. We even just took 2 wood blocks, clapped them together as percussion elements, and then other hand drums and percussion elements as well. And then we had some flutes, some Native American flutes and other world flutes that we used kind of sparingly, but for here and there in the series and since.
Yeah, watching the first episode, it definitely has sort of horror and suspense vibe to it, which probably helped with your budget constraints, I'm sure. I don't feel like based on what I saw, I don't think a full orchestra would work as well. The show feels a little more intimate, so it's probably better to write. Is it easier to write for a smaller, like a?
No, it actually is. It's kind of it can
everything's out there
because everything's out there.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty exposed, and also it's if it's also hard because like sometimes I'd be wanting my instincts would be like, all right, I want a high string sustain here, and we didn't have a violin. I think we had violins like on maybe one episode and the main title.
Right.
But so when I wanted to get up into those higher ranges, I had to figure out other options. So I found a couple synths that had kind of a harmonic, like a violin harmonic sustain quality, but again, it was kind of more spacey and synth driven rather than trying to imitate a violin. And so the other thing I ended up doing was using a lot some guitar as well. Because I played some of the guitar as well, but I did it in a way that was I slapped a lot of reverb on there and a lot of distortion, and I would take a slide and I would just play up really high, kind of a tremolo thing, and I would just kind of move it up and down so the pitch is kind of wavering, and I would layer that a couple times, and that kind of gave this tension sound that we ended up using quite a lot. And also another thing as well was just I would end up I used a lot of reverse guitar swells because that were very reverberated, because that actually just ended up working as it helped a lot to kind of take us out of scenes or to transition. Almost kind of it kind of acted almost as like a pitched cymbal roll in a sense, and just helped kind of just fill the space and make it kind of dirty and gritty.
Yeah. Because even though it has sort of the qualities of a spaghetti western, it's nice that the score. I mean, like we're all familiar with how a spaghetti western would normally sound, and I like that this is. It plays more like horror than a classic spaghetti western. There are like differences. Did you like have like? I know we've discussed this before, and you're a fan of film scoring. Are there like any influences on this or on any of your other projects?
Yeah, it was
like as
interesting
far as
because
composers go?
yeah, for this it was obviously I listened to a bunch of Morricone and all that, but
Yeah.
one of the conversations early on was that they didn't want it to sound like a spaghetti western. They
Yeah.
wanted, there was it was kind of hard to find the tone that really worked for it because um, it just it needed to be its own thing.
Mhm.
And so I initially I was using way more rhythmic guitar and kind of because I ended up the guitar ended up being pretty much just effects and kind of dissonant weirdness. And so that was there used to be more kind of like your classic baritone electric guitar that you would hear in Morricone stuff where you're like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, that's a guitar. And so we had to kind of pivot from that. But and in terms of influences, there was a lot of one cue that was used as temp that they really liked was actually the trailer from Midsummer. It's this kind of this really
Okay.
interesting uh, it's kind of there's some synth in it, but it's also it's there's this string kind of like um, uh, uh, staccato kind of motif that's going and it's really kind of it gets aggressive and heavy and it's kind of again it's got this horror element to it. So there was a lot of that. There was some reference to the Sicario soundtrack we were looking at as well, and
Mhm.
um, a couple other
N-
things that were like in that wheelhouse. But
You
generally,
like you mentioned temp. Now
yeah,
you've done temp work,
yes,
temp
yes.
editing and stuff, and it's a cool process. It's fun, but I've heard that a lot of times directors get sort of married to the temp track. What's it like being on the other side? So when they play these temp traps and the temp tracks and they really like it, and do you ever feel like, but you hired me? It's
Yeah, there's
like I want to do my own thing. Is it tough finding a medium ground as
it
far
can
as
be at
that goes?
times. I go back and forth with temp because sometimes a scene will be temped really well, and for those who don't know, a temp score is just when you edit in pre-existing scores that have already been recorded to as a placeholder, so that the
Yeah.
producers and directors get a sense for what the episode will feel like before you write the music.
Mhm.
And generally, that's done by an editor or music editor beforehand. And so, um, it can be helpful, but it can also be an enemy at times.
Yeah.
It can be a bit of a guide for like, okay, I see what you're looking for here. Whereas, if you have a scene with no music, you may have an idea of what you want to do, but the director might have an idea, completely different idea. So, yeah, for the most part, it wasn't much of an issue for me. I would kind of, I would take a listen as a ref, or I'd watch the whole episode through with the temp, and I would mark where the cues are starting, and for the most part, it set the tone well and all that. But I definitely would deviate from it at times where I'm like, oh, this needs a bit of a tonal shift here, or I don't think this temp is quite right for what the scene is needing. And so,
Mhm.
for the most part, one of the directors he'd be like, "Oh, like interesting, you did something very different for the temp, but I really like it." And then other times it's like kind of there would be discussions of kind of like, "Oh, like let's I this is what I was going for." And when they explain what it was that they're wanting from the scene, that makes it easier to be like, "Okay, I see what the temp is giving you that you like, and then I'll
Right.
put in the rest of what I think it needs from this angle."
So like with TV, you don't really get spotting sessions,
Generally,
or
from my understanding, generally, I think there are spotting sessions. I know on Lost, I think there was like one at the beginning, like one or two at the beginning, and then the rest was kind
Mhm.
of my dad just kind of went off and because they just didn't have time. And it was on this we actually did not have one spotting session because on that Dirty Black Bag, especially because the timeline was so crunched. I was told by the producers, they were like, look, the train has left the station. This doesn't mean go off and do what you want, but like let's make sure that everyone's happy with the sound, and then let's move on, and we're just going to run with it. And, there'll be some room for a couple revisions here and there, but for the most part, it's just kind of, you're going to have to
Yeah.
just, we're going to have to just trust you with it. So,
Following following film scores my whole life, and every time there would be a spotting session on like a DVD extra, I'd get super excited. Super excited. On one of my other shows, we were watching a documentary on The Empire Strikes Back, and they had the spotting session with Irvin Kershner and George Lucas with John Williams talking about the scene, like they're filming the spotting session during the scene where like Han Solo says, "I know."
oh
Princess
yeah,
Leia
yeah. I
says,
think
"I
I've
love
seen
you."
that documentary. Yeah, that's
And
great.
just like seeing John Williams' face was like, "Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good." I am fascinating with spotting sessions, and I don't know why that is, but I want to find like every filmed version of a spotting session just to watch the director and composer go over the whole movie and talk about like where to come in, what's going on. And I don't know, I'm obsessed with them. So like hearing that you've probably done spotting sessions, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Most likely for like extinct or like films.
yeah. Extinct. We
But
had one on some of the short films I've done. We had one. Yeah,
yeah.
generally you have spotting sessions.
Yeah, I found it. I think it's interesting that you didn't have them for the TV show. Um, but I guess if I mean they get shot and they're produced so quickly that there must not be time. So, but for me, I feel like I don't know if this is the case, but like, do you feel lost without this spotting session? Like, do you feel like okay, I've just got to go with your gut?
Yeah. So what was interesting was, and again, a lot of this was just because of the amount of time that we had to score it. Was just we just didn't have time for spotting sessions,
Yeah.
um, and so generally from the beginning, what I was kind of told was there's no spotting sessions. Follow the temp in terms of where we have music placed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so in the first episode, there was two directors on the show. One, like they would alternate every other episode. So like the odd number episode director um, was very particular about his temp music and where it starts and stops. And that was the first one I did. So I followed closely to kind of like, all right, there's music here, there's no music here, there's music here. I would maybe go on a little bit longer or stop sooner if I felt I needed it.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I followed his roadmap that he had done with the editor of putting the temp music in, and that was kind of my spotting session. When I got to episode 2, I used the same approach because I didn't have a meeting with the director beforehand. And during the first review, I discovered very quickly that he does not is not was not as particular with the temp, which and I think there's benefits to both methods.
Mm-hmm.
With the first way, it's easy to it's nice to have a roadmap and kind of a reference to that you can use or not use, and whether you agree with it or not, depending on the scene. But then, and on the other hand, having no like or just general temp music and not specifically kind of like, all right, I wanted it starting here and there. Um, that's nice in the sense that you can really put a lot of your decisions and kind of your voice into it. um,
Yeah.
but if you don't have the spotting sessions beforehand, it's harder to figure out or know what they're wanting. So
Yeah.
I by episode three and four, I kind of realized what each director was kind of working with, and so I would add more music where I thought it would be needed on the even episodes, and it was kind of just finding a balance between the two and making sure that
So like
that they both sound the
like
same.
between the oh yeah, yeah, between the budget constraints and no spotting sessions, I mean, this sounds like this project is the most you. Would you would you say
Yeah,
this is like, yeah, you're like out there.
yeah, yeah,
Um
definitely. I got to do some fun stuff with it, and I got to do some kind of more melodic, emotional moments in the show, but also some kind of more atmospheric and drony ambient, just kind of tones. And again, the guitar was great for that, the electric guitar, because I have this thing called a sustainer in one of the pickups where you hit a switch and it'll hold the note forever, or you can flip another switch and it'll do like a harmonic, so it sounds like it's feeding back. And when you put a lot of reverb on there and kind of have it swell in and out volume with the volume, you can kind of create these interesting tones that are kind of just more, again, an ambient texture. So it was kind of a mix of the two, but it was fun to kind of experiment and kind of find the sound. Definitely the sound in the last episode is very different from, or not very different, but it is noticeably different from the first episode. Just because it kind of feels like as we went on each episode, we kind of started to find the sound more. And I say we because I was working with the mixer. He helped kind of get the spatial sound of it. So I think as we moved on, and by spatial I just mean in terms of like where things are sitting in the mix and kind of in the size of the reverb and just what the score sounds like on a technical level. And so I think while it started out kind of smaller, it kind of grew a little bit bigger. I remember there was a cue in episode 5 where I heard it, where there was, think we had a couple, like 4 cello overdubs or something like that, playing different harmonies and different melody lines. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this sounds way more like a section than I've heard it in the past on the past 4 episodes. And it's just, he had started treating it slightly differently. And as we did each episode, it kind of evolved, and we kind of found this cool sound at the end.
It's cool. It sounds awesome. Like you kind of want to end up on top. You would rather it be,
yeah, exactly
an upward slope instead of a diminishing returns.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some smaller things that you've worked on, and this is one of my favorite things is source music.
Oh yeah,
diegetic music, and I've heard I have your copy of your demo, and some of my favorite stuff I absolutely love is source music. I'm a huge fan of source music. I mean, obviously like the Cantina and stuff in Star Wars, but any sort of music that that's coming from a source in the film. You've done some of that for your dad, and I think Incredible Spider-Man and Jurassic World. And my favorite bit is from Jurassic World that you did that showed up at the entrance of the Velocicoaster.
Yeah, that was that was a big surprise. Yeah, I had done it was initially in the first Jurassic World. It was the scene where the 2 boys are waiting in line to get in the gyrosphere, and essentially I just did the music that they're hearing in the line, and it's kind of, you just hear it over the loudspeakers and all that. And somehow that I was on Twitter around when the Velocicoaster opened at Universal Orlando, and I saw a video of the area music, and I was like, wait, what? And because it was playing that cue. And so I love theme parks, and I love Disney and Universal and going to visit these things, because they create such an atmosphere with the lands and the worlds, not only, in addition to the rides. And so just the fact that there was a piece of music that I wrote that just happened to be playing at the park that I didn't even know about and just kind of discovered made me very excited, and it was very special to
Have
discover.
You visited?
No, I haven't. I have not. No. I haven't been to Florida. So I was in Florida right before the pandemic broke out.
Yeah.
Actually, and I went on the Hagrid ride, but the Velocicoaster wasn't open yet, so I'll have to make it back over there.
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, I don't know. It'd be the weirdest thing to walk into some place and see, just something showing. Let's get a little bit bigger scale as far as you doing some work with your dad. I have to talk about it, but I saw your name in the credits of. Yeah, I saw your name in the credits of the Batman under additional music by.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about the Batmobile?
Yeah,
Are you?
so pretty much I had the insane opportunity to score the Batmobile chase, and essentially I was yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
again, generally I've in the past when my dad has asked me to write something for, for just an additional cues, it's generally a source cue or
Mhm.
like a smaller scene that's like, maybe 30 seconds or so. And
Yeah.
and so this was this was kind of a surprise. Essentially, and they were initially planning on not having any music during the car chase. It was
Mhm.
gonna, the music was gonna start when the Penguin takes off and's like, Kenzie, get the money, and there was music there, and it was gonna end right when Catwoman pulls her visor down, and then it cuts to the shot of the Batmobile on the highway driving, and there's just gonna be nothing. And it was just gonna be all sound effects.
Mhm.
Um, and so they had the review of the full film, their second music review, and after that, my dad and Matt realized like, we need music here. And at that time, my dad was recording Spider-Man and Batman back to back. I think there was literally, and because of COVID restrictions, generally that would take maybe 4 days to record a full movie with everyone in the same room, all the musicians.
Mhm.
But because of COVID, everyone had to be separated into different studios. So it dragged out the process to 2 weeks for each film. So
Yeah.
there was literally a month-long period where it was recording Spider-Man. There were 2 days off, maybe even one day off, and then the Batman session started, and that also lasted
Yeah.
2 weeks. So there was essentially a month long of sessions. So that last review had happened right before Spider-Man was starting, and my dad didn't really have the time to write it, and so he was like, "Hey," he just said to me, "Hey, do you want to do the Batmobile chase?" And I was like, "You're kidding, right?" And he was like, "No, no, no," and so uh,
No
I
pressure.
yeah, no pressure at all. Um, yeah, so one thing that again that I didn't I got the scene, and he just kind of gave me an overview of like, all right, Matt really doesn't want any fanfares in this, or he doesn't want it to feel heroic. It like this
Mhm.
should feel scary. It should feel like he's Batman's hunting and chasing down the Penguin. So I did the first pass beforehand that had kind of I tried to fit some of the themes in there because I get excited about like, oh my god, like like I'll put this fanfare of the or this kind of heroic moment in there, and my dad was like, all right, let's take all that stuff out because this needs to be, again, it needs to be more scary and kind of more threatening. So
Mhm.
that kind of led to kind of some weird string trills and interjections that were kind of fun, and it was just, I'm a huge Batman fan, so it was just kind of
Yeah.
a crazy, uh, uh, larger than life experience to get to work on that.
Yeah. Not every Batman film has a Batmobile chase. So you're like among like a handful of composers who've who have scored Batmobile chases.
Yeah, which
Like
feels
like
wrong, but
I mean, but still, I mean, you have like it's like Elfman, Ellie Goldenthal, Zimmer, James Newton Howard, and then like Junkie XL. Or
yeah,
so it's like that's not a lot of people. There's not a
yeah,
lot of
I
people. So
definitely I do not belong on that list with those names.
what?
But
But technically you are part of them. And when you told me that that's what you were doing on this movie, I was like, holy shit, dude! Like that's big. Like circumstances worked out great. And what's funny is seeing like the comments online, you know. Uh the one I remember was it said um it was like them. We need music for the Batmobile chase. And then it said like Giacchino, or it said Michael Giacchino, and then it just had the picture of the flaming piano, the dude at the flaming piano. I'm like, I know, I know,
yeah.
Michael didn't do that. It's really good. It's a really good cue. It starts off like, I mean, it's like for the Batmobile to roar as loud as it does, you still get to hear your music pretty well in it.
Yeah,
Like the mix is really good. Like you get a good sense of both. especially
Yeah,
considering that there was supposed to be no music and it was all sound effects. They don't feel like they're competing at all.
yeah, it definitely the drums definitely cut through at very specific points too, and again, some of those there's these high string interjections as well that you end up hearing that are kind of just like these. Again, it kind of in between statements of the theme, as he's kind of ramming him from behind towards the beginning of the chase. Like there's just these kind of these. I was thinking of them as like these shrieks that are just kind of these really ugly clusters of chromatic chords that are just kind of where and the strings are just kind of up in this really high register that sounds just like they're shrieking.
Yeah.
And so that stuff especially gets to cut through. And you know, some of the percussion as well in the metal, and actually I got to go visit the dub stage while they were mixing that, so it was cool to kind of get a sense of what, again, as you're saying, what cuts through and what doesn't, because you get to hear a lot of the discussions about kind of like, oh, you know, like this sound is too loud, can we pull this down, or oh hey, like, you know, like the brass is a little too strong here, it's covering this other element of the film that we need to hear, like let's take that down a bit. And it's funny, a couple people were saying like, because I hung out there all day just sitting watching them work and on a couple scenes, and there was someone, one of the post soups or someone came up to me, he's like, they were like, wow, you like most people hate this part, like they just hate sitting and watching, and I just love I love it because I'll try to as I listen to the things that the director Matt is looking for when they would play back a new scene, I would try to listen carefully and be like, all right, what are the things that he's going to mention? Sometimes I would get it. Sometimes it would be something that I didn't even think about, and I was like, oh yeah, that's so much clearer now. But Matt has a really good sense of making sure that everything can be heard, and everything, and that, you know, music drives when music needs to drive, and that sound effects drive when sound effects need to drive, and that, you know, obviously dialogue trumps all.
Yeah.
It needs to be heard. So.
Yeah. At any point, did you interject? Or
No,
were you just sitting in the back? Did you go, I think it should be more music?
No. I was I was purely a fly on the wall. Because it was purely an educational thing for me. Getting to go, I definitely did not want to overstep and try to say like, hey, like, you know, let's do, because the other thing too is I know that in some of the other mixes that I've been a part of for my music, I know to a certain extent, I know I'm biased because obviously I want the music to be heard, and so I generally try to, unless it's like really, really buried in moments that are important, you know, I generally try to only give tiny notes about volume and all that. But on Batman, I was like, this is not my movie. I'm purely watching. It was a gift for me to be.
You don't want to do anything where they pull the plug. You're like,
exactly.
I made it this far. I'm not going to say anything. Let them do their thing. Hopefully it gets like, because I feel like you would be like, oh, there wasn't supposed to be music in here, so they can pull the plug at any moment.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it made it. It made it in.
Yeah.
I remember when the album, the digital release came out like a week before the movie came out, or like a couple days before, and it's the first one it's the only one I listened to. It's the only one I listened to just because I'm like, I gotta hear it. I gotta hear it.
Yeah. So that's a combination of two cues right there. That's in on the score. It was written as the first cue was is right when the Batmobile takes off, and it's the dun 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 dun. Dun. So that was my dad's, and that was called talk about good name or cue titles. This was a Paul Applegren one, was If Batmobile Street Could Talk.
Okay.
A great title. And then the chase was a separate cue. Like, again, the cut between it is when Catwoman pulls her visor down, and then there's kind of like a trumpet rip up, and there's a kind of a brief second of silence, and then it goes into the theme, the big statement of the theme, and that's when my cue starts. And so I had thought it would be fun to do Highway to the Anger Zone.
Yeah. As you
told
me that ahead of time, so I knew which one to listen to.
Yeah.
Because I usually don't listen to scores before the movies come out, or before I see the movie. I like to be surprised, but I made an exception on this one because I was so excited for you. I was so excited.
Yeah, it's still
Um,
again, it feels like a fever dream. So
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Um, one more bit of business I want to talk about is Perseverance.
oh yeah,
If we could talk about Perseverance.
yeah, I'd love to.
I got an advanced copy of this album. I think it's great. I really like it. I don't know. It's not necessarily film score. How do you describe it? Because it's not a film score. It's
Yeah, it's funny. I've always had such a hard time describing it because I don't know exactly what it just kind of it is what it is. I think
it's a showcase of
definitely.
you,
Yeah, I guess
I
so.
guess.
I think it's kind of the most me thing that I've made. That's
Yeah.
really kind of just it feels like my own. And I drew inspiration from kind of some minimalist composers. I was really into some Steve Reich and Philip Glass, and
Mhm.
it's funny. I actually wrote it all backwards. So I had written the third because it's three pieces. It's Horizon, Adrift, and Reunion, and I wrote Reunion first. That was the first thing. I was actually I was in the middle of it was I was in the middle of scoring Extinct, um, and there's like one night in like November 2019 where I was like, all right, I need one night to just do something that's not Extinct, just
Right.
to do something different for a second because
Extinct also I love. I really
oh,
like Extinct. I've listened to it a few times.
yeah, Extinct was fun
Uh,
because we got to kind of do some of the Les Baxter sound and kind of Martin Denny, a
yeah.
little bit of that with kind of more traditional orchestral and animation. So, and yeah, I loved working on that. But every now and then you do need like a little bit
You need a break.
a break to kind of keep those ideas fresh and to keep it, yeah. So you're not just like dwelling on it. And if you get stuck, it's easy to kind of just shut down. So there was one night where I just came up with that riff for the and for Reunion, and I made like a 20-second thing of that, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna put this away. I'm gonna go finish Extinct, and then after Extinct was done in like January 2020, I uh, was like, all right, I think it's time. This is my next thing that I want to do. I want to do this as like a personal project. And so initially just started out, it was going to be a performance piece that was going
Mhm.
to have, I was going to do it live with a violinist, a cellist, a flautist, and then a percussionist, and with a synth backing track. Um, and then we all know what how COVID hit. I was just about done writing it. I think there was like just a couple little things I had to tweak, and then COVID hit, and that never got to happen. And then a couple months later, a friend was like, "You should just get people to record from home, see if they'll do it." And so I found a violinist, the cellist, same cellist on that Dirty Black Bag. We've been working together since that. And a flautist who played a bunch of world flutes. So we ended up having on that project. He ended up using I think a Native American flute, some Indian flutes. There was ocarinas. There were recorders, penny whistles. Um, and as well as just a standard flute and alto flute, and I'm sure a couple others that I'm forgetting. But so that is something that originally was just going to be a normal flute, and so that is something that came out of this that wouldn't have been there if I hadn't, had the opportunity to perform it live, taken away. And then so after we recorded those parts, I was like, this needs some electric bass. So I got a friend to do electric bass. And then we got percussion as well, and ended up layering a bunch of stuff, so it sounded even bigger. And um, then as the last stage of it, I was like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to put some vocals on this as well, just to kind of as another texture and color, and as an instrument rather than like a singing. So my roommate actually, she sang on that, Kate Ron. You can check out her music on Spotify and Apple Music and all of those places. She's great. She's like a rock pop singer. But so we put down all of that, and then it just kind of that's what it turned into. It was just kind of a fun thing of let's try a bunch of stuff, and we'll just make something kind of weird. So
So with venues opening back up, any thoughts of bringing it back and doing a live performance? I
I
mean, it
would
might
love.
be tough to get everyone together.
It would. I would love to at some point. I don't know if I have the clout to to get a full live performance going for it, but
Right.
it's also like I think we ended up having like 8 layers of drums, and then we also had again like there we did a lot of vocal overdubs as well. So it would be a lot bigger to do it the way it should be. But if I ever got the opportunity to, I would love to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say just could you go back to how you were originally going to do it without all the extras,
I
without all the
could.
vocals and the
I could, but I feel like it's such a part of it now, and I can't
yeah
hear it without it.
yeah.
That I think it would have to be the right circumstance in order to do it um, the way
I,
it was meant. Because I always look at what we recorded as, oh, this is what it was supposed to be, and I just didn't know it yet at the time.
what's the total time on the three pieces?
It's
Um,
about 16, 17 minutes or so.
16.
Yeah,
Well, listen, I feel like when you go to any rock concert, there's an opening act.
yeah,
I mean, you can be the opening act if you know your dad does something coming up. I'm hoping. I've seen I I've seen him perform I think 3 or 4 times.
mm,
It's always been the Lost concert.
yeah,
I, I was hoping that last Lost concert. I was hoping I'd get to see the film score one, but I mean, see if he needs an opening act.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
You never
right,
know. You never know.
right.
Yeah,
Force people to listen to your music.
yeah.
They're not paying to see you, but they gotta
Exactly,
listen.
exactly. I know. Yeah, it would. Look. You don't have to convince me. I am like fully. I would love to do
Right.
this. I think it would just, again, finding the right place and opportunity to do it at, and then also, and then once that's figured out, then like, all right, how do we make this?
I'm gonna set it up. I'm gonna set it up. I want to
Look, if
see
you do it, I'll do it.
because I mean it has to be like part of something. It has to be part of a bigger thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Unless you do some like the some of the what is it, the Jimmy Fallon suite
Oh, yeah.
from Jurassic
Yeah, from
World.
Jurassic World. Yeah,
Yeah, add some
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
But I'm hoping that someday it happens soon because between Perseverance, Extinct, and that little black bag, that dirty black bag. See, I always get the adjectives wrong.
yeah.
That's why I had to read it at the beginning because I keep thinking it's little
Yeah, no,
dirty
it's not
bag,
little.
and
It's
then it's
pretty big and it's dirty.
and it's full of gross stuff, as
It's
far as
yeah.
I
He,
know.
he he carries around a bag of decapitated
Gross.
heads.
Yeah.
The main character is a bounty hunter, and the whole thing is a head weighs less than a body to bring back to be identified. So he chops off the head and he'll shove it in his bag and
I'm not much of a
blood
horror
oozing from
dude,
it.
so
Yeah.
I just watched the first one. I mean, I don't know if you can tell me this or not, but I'm hoping there's some sort of at least digital release of the
Oh,
score.
yeah, we're talking in the early stages of talking about that right now. So we're trying to
Oh,
figure out how to
good.
make it happen.
Perfect.
But yeah, it sounds like AMC's
That
on
makes
board.
it much easier on me.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it might be a
exactly.
little
Yeah, no,
too
trust me.
intense for
When my mom saw it, she was like, I could see her like covering her eyes and wincing. And
yeah.
she was like, I'll just listen to it next. Like I'm not gonna watch it.
Cool.
I was like, I totally
Well, that's
understand.
awesome. I'll definitely get it when it's released, and I'll post about it too because I
Yeah,
think people should check it out. Anything else you have coming up that you want to discuss? Any
yeah. I've got. I mean, I've
projects
got a
coming
couple
up?
short films that I scored that are starting to do festival circuits right now. One is called Hummingbird. The director is Lindsay Gary. She wrote and directed. It's her short film debut, which was a great story. We did that we recorded it last time, or wrote and recorded it last summer. There's another one as well called Coming Home, which was directed by Mark Thaler, who's it's a great story about kind of veterans, and there's no dialogue in it. It's all
Oh,
it's a lot of like kind of soundscapey music. It's interesting,
okay.
but it's kind of it's a commentary on the way the U.S. kind of treats their veterans after they come home. Uh,
Right.
and then outside of that stuff, there's I've been working on kind of it's not a sequel to Perseverance, but it's kind of I like to think of it as a cousin. Just kind of
Uh,
it's got some similar energy, but it's going to be more space based, and I think it's going to be the goal is to have it be a spatial audio Atmos listening experience where we really play with the idea of using the space around you in the
okay.
music process. So it's
When do you think that's going to be ready to announce? Is it going to be a
uh,
little bit or?
it's going to be a little bit. Yeah, I have about 6 tracks written right now, and I'm just in the process of. It was initially supposed to be all synth. I'm still figuring out exactly what it's supposed to be, but I actually have tomorrow. I'm meeting up with someone to work on it, who's really good with all the electronic music, and so we're going to kind of bring it. But I think there might be some electric bass. We're going to try to put some harp in as well, and so some
Vocalists and drummers and flautists and
yeah, exactly. No,
here's
uh,
your show. Both of these can be your show.
yeah,
Is Henry doing the artwork for the cover?
Henry will. Yes, he will be doing it. That was actually he
Okay.
was the first person I had on board for this thing, and
Okay.
and he's heard everything, and we've talked about it, the idea, and kind of just what it is as a whole. And he was really actually helpful in just kind of talking it through it with me, and kind of pulling out these ideas that I had been kind of thinking about, but I didn't quite connect the two, and realize that I was putting it into it. So that was he kind of helped shape what it's becoming, just story wise, and it's not going to be like a narrative or anything, but just kind of in terms of the musical flow from one cue to another. It's um,
I think that should be where I get both of you guys in here.
yeah, for
Talk
sure,
about that.
for
Yeah,
sure,
that's
yeah.
exciting. I want to hear it. If you have any sort of if you need like a focus group, send it my way.
You're the one.
I'll probably
Yes,
just say it's great because it probably is going to be great. But I say that about everything you send me, but it's true. I really really dig it.
we
I
need some
really do.
we need some criticism too.
I know it's hard though. It's hard though,
You know,
because when you sent me Extinct, I'm like, all right, it's not the type of movie I'd be into. But I'm like, I'm going to support my friend. I'm going to listen to this thing, and it is phenomenal. I loved it. I loved
thanks,
it.
thanks.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was really good. And then same with same with Batman. I was I was I was in bed, ready to go to bed, and it the album dropped like at 9, I think, at night Pacific time
yeah.
because it's iTunes or whatever. And so I popped it on the home pod and started listening to it while my wife was getting ready. First thing she said is that Mick? Because I was so excited. I was really, really excited for you, and I'm excited for everything you do in the future. And I can't wait to hear the cousin of Perseverance.
Yeah.
So,
Perseverance's cousin. Yeah.
no title?
That is the title. There's a working title that I have right now.
Okay.
I'm not ready to share because I'm not sure if that's exactly what it's going to stay as, but there's like
Yeah,
probably about a 60-70% chance that it's what it will be.
cool. Well, I can't wait to hear it, and I can't wait to have you back on to discuss it. And we'll
Yes,
bring
yes.
Henry in because I know Henry wanted to be here, and I'm like, it's just, I don't know if
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if he wanted to come in to be disruptive or what.
No,
It was
Henry and I just we've known each other since we were like 4 or 5 or so, or at 4 or 5. I have this photo of us actually from the day we met. I'm actually holding up. I think I'm holding a Batmobile in my hand and an egg, and he's holding an egg and some monster toy that he had. And because we were doing an egg toss, I think it was. We were
okay.
partnering up for it. And it's funny because it's just like he's really into he loves monster movies, and he's kind of really into this kind of these kind of gross monster aesthetics. And I love Batman, so it was kind of like, it was like, oh yeah, even back then, there we were.
Yeah, and here I am talking to you about Batman, and I talked to him, which is going to be an upcoming episode about monster movies.
Yeah,
So,
so
that's
cool.
cool, dude. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Thanks for being on.
yeah. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, it's it's fun. It's a new show, and I'm getting used to this, so I'm glad you can join me
Oh, I'm
and
excited. No,
have
I
people
can't.
chatting.
I think
Yeah,
it's a great idea for a show, and I can't wait to watch more of it too. Yeah,
thanks. All right, man. Have a
yeah.
good
All
one,
right. We'll see you
and
Sunday on Fireball
chat again
Island.
soon. Oh yeah. Are we playing?
You're going down.
Are we
We're
playing?
friendly here, but
Are we playing? If we play, yeah, I'm all for
I
it.
think
It's
so.
been a
Yeah,
while. I feel like
yeah.
it's been
Look, we're
forever.
friendly here, but
Really,
there are no friendships on Fireball Island.
there aren't. There
Yeah,
aren't. This is my only friend.
yeah. This R2D2 dice roller.
Yeah. All right, man.